All right, well, here I am. So I've been very much looking forward to this conversation because I feel like it's a happy place of ease and joyful like book reading and it's all for the good cause. I love it here.
Yeah, I think people join in, so that's great. And yeah, I always love talking to you, Ellie. And it's
Yeah.
just try to get a little bit more of like the writer side. And
Mm-hmm.
one of my
Yes.
friends, Ben Ulancy, surprised me because he had a guest, and it was this guy who was just traveling through South America on these little three-wheel bikes, and it was
So
just
fun.
like through the course of the conversation, I just was able to just deep get into my own memories of travel and just get away from
Yeah.
everything. And it was like that was so precious.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes people ask you questions, you're just like, oh, I didn't even know I wanted to talk about that. But oh, here we are. This is great.
I wanted to show you. I got this book of my daughter's drawings too. Let's see if I can you can see that. She
Ah,
and
it's
did you
so
see? I wonder if
good.
it's back over there. I was gonna show you that. I was gonna show you the paper doll thing she made, but it's over. It's out of
Yeah,
reach.
she
So
is she's so fantastic. I hope that she just does everything that she wants to do with art in her life and
my kids, and I
that's it.
guess I haven't heard much about your kids. I'll give you a you'll have to tell
So
me
they're
about your
still so
kids.
little. They're just like they're at the pupa stage, you know. They're still figuring out how to survive in the wild and brush their own teeth and becoming independent and
Well,
like doing all the things that I'm just like, "Oh, I don't have to totally follow you around the house anymore and make sure you're alive." And so, my oldest is 14 and she bounces around with the things that she wants to do with her life. She went to a film class and she really likes history and she loves marching band. Marching band is her life. And so I just said, go nuts.
oh, absolutely, and I was telling somebody else that I think because I always insist on driving my kids to school after all the
Mhm.
horrible experiences I had on the
Yeah.
school bus,
Yeah.
and it's just like just the 5 minutes driving from here to there, and we've always been a Spanish-speaking family. My wife's
Yeah.
an immigrant, so and that's something, and so wait, and all the people joining in the wonderful chat. Yes, current events will be part of this, but we want to just take this. I just want to
Yeah, we're
take
just
things
we're
down.
breathing. We're just breathing for a minute.
Yeah, have a nice chat with Ellie about things. But
Yeah,
I've always been a Spanish speaker, and I'll
that's
just go out. I
lovely.
mean, this is now since we've been here. It's been 15, 7, actually more than that, 16, 17 years, and
Mhm.
I'll just always speak in Spanish in public loudly. And it's just since the earliest days, people get mad about it, and it's just sort of like, why? I'm allowed to say any words I want,
Yeah.
you know, and
I don't know why it's offensive. I we I remember a time when it was like it meant you were worldly and it meant you were educated and it meant I don't know, it was just happier and I don't
oh,
I don't get why it's offensive now. It's beyond my comprehension.
And that's been a deliberate part of the conditioning, and I keep telling people so much of what we do, you know, because people are like, "Well, we'll have the chance to vote in the midterms, but we unless we educate the population on the stuff that's going on here, because the other side is conditioning their side with hate all the time and
Yeah.
lies just constantly to the point where they, you know, from the line from 1984 where they only believe what the party tells them to believe.
Mhm.
They disregard the evidence of their own eyes."
We were talking about this last night because we have kinda little breakdowns after dinner. We're just like, "How was your day? Okay, what did you hear?" And, like, just the idea of is there a center anymore? Are we all just on one side or the other? And I said, I because he said my husband was saying it's impossible to ignore, which I agree on the one hand, but when you talk to people who are still in support of Donald Trump and still in support of the ICE, policies or whatever, you'll talk to them and it's like they've never heard of the stuff that's happening. And you
Yeah.
you go, "Oh, because you're getting this funnel of news that just tells you this beautiful story and you don't look anywhere else." So it's still possible to not see that. It's probably harder and harder, but it's interesting that people are just so funneled into one source so they don't have to realize, they don't have to look. I don't want to know. I don't need to know kind of a situation.
Yeah, and getting back to what you said, I mean, it's been a long time. There is no left representation in the
Mhm.
United States. We have a moderate right wing and a just out of control right wing.
Yeah.
And it's like I've even said to people, go look at Eisenhower's platform, and it's the same as Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. And so it's
Yeah.
just this steady march, you know, this
Yeah.
slowly surrendering ever. And it's what's so sad to me is just there's just no ability to talk and say, "Hey, can we do this differently?" Because today I wrote an
Yeah.
article mildly critical of Adam Kinzinger, and
Yeah.
just the hostility I get where people are like,
I
"Well,
know.
you can't attack our allies." And it's like, since when is just saying, "Hey, could you do
Yeah.
this, please?"
We've
Since when is that
forgotten
an attack?
yeah, we've forgotten the art of constructive criticism.
Well, we've been conditioned, I think. I think
Yeah.
it's yeah, and it's just as a nation to just kinda try to get that back because what scares me, overarching everything, is just like, I mean, you've been so diligent, you've been working on those Epstein
Mhm.
files, and you've been finding things, and that's gonna come into any conversation with you, sorry.
Oh, yeah,
But
no,
it's
it's
just
okay.
but what scares me is, what if I mean, I think we're at the point. I mean, we're assuming if you find the evidence that he'll be rejected, and
Mhm.
why are we assuming that? Maybe
Yeah.
90% of his base is gonna remain loyal to him even if there are videos of him doing horrible
Right,
things.
right, we can show a video of him doing horrible things, which we have, and they can look at it and just go, "That's fake," and AI helps them say that more now. Now they can just be like, "Well, I don't believe that that is AI," "I don't think he's actually doing the thing that I'm watching him do." Um, so I don't think it's gonna be e ever convincing his base. I don't I they will have to make that decision for himself. It will be whether or not we can convince people who should be convincible and educated to look at evidence, and that is the Supreme Court. And right now, they're just a mess.
Yeah. But I think I wanna pivot to your writing just because
Sure.
I really well, I mean, because I think it fits into this theme.
Yeah.
Because I think your book is one of those really powerful examples of this narrative that's just completely disregarded. And for those of you here, I mean, I've been reading Ellie's and it just started just kind of like a spontaneous like, "Oh,
Yeah.
here's a way I can help another writer.
It's
This will
the
be kind of
most
fun."
it's the most amazing thing. Like, I told Walter, I was like, "I don't expect you to send me a narration of every chapter," but it's like I get them in my inbox, and it's just such a happy surprise, like, because it's 2 things, like, you never consider hearing your own words that you've written in somebody else's voice, but also, like, in my own head, I thought, "Oh, a man could never read this book, that would never work," and it works so well, like, there's just something about it that is so objective, and I don't know, like, it's not you read it in a way that's unemotional, and it just works so well that I really love it.
Oh, that's so kind. And like I said,
Yeah.
it's the voice I use for my kids, and
Yeah,
you
no,
probably
it's
have a voice like this where
yes,
it's like,
yes, I
"Just
do.
go to sleep." And it's just like you're learning to be like, "Oh."
Stop.
I used well, like Goodnight Moon, I used to kinda sing it,
Yeah,
where it was in a
yeah,
great green room, and
yeah,
if
oh,
you
yeah.
kinda sing it and then and that book is so amazing because the pages all get darker, so it makes them go to sleep. I
Oh, yeah.
wasn't so impressed with that book until I'd read it like 200 times.
Yeah,
Oh.
ours was the Dr. Seuss ABC, that turned into a big, like, musical Broadway review every night for about 3 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's well, the other saying that though, I always read my kids Calvin and Hobbes, and, he's got his book, Hamster Huey and the Gooey Kablooey, writ
Yes.
well, that's just it keeps coming up, and the children's book author is Mabel Syrup. I just that's one of those things that just makes me
You
laugh.
know, it's funny, just on a tangent. So, my daughter learned to read on Calvin Hobbes comic books. She read very, very early. She was barely 3 and she was ready to, like, read The Hobbit. She was just for whatever reason,
Yeah.
it clicked for her. And so we I don't know if you have the Buy Nothing site in your area, but most neighborhoods have something called the Buy Nothing site where people give things that they no longer use that are like gently used for someone else to take, and there's no money exchange. It's like, hey, I have this nice thing, I'd like it to go to somebody. And we got the entire stack of Calvin and Hobbes books, like the total series. She fell in love with them. She learned to read very large words with them in her own pronunciation, which I didn't
Yeah.
tell her otherwise because I just loved it. But now we have someone named Calvin at our house, and he was based on her love of those Calvin and Hobbes books, and so like they mean a lot to our family.
Oh, they're every now and then though, I think as I mature as a human being, because when I was in the '80s, I was reading it and it was just
Yeah,
glorious and I loved
yeah.
the but now I've gotten to the point where I don't like the way Calvin treats Susie. I don't like it.
No,
And
no.
it but it used to be just, like, funny, but it's like
I
that's that
know.
cultural
But she does
indoctrination.
fight back. She does fight back. She's
Oh,
a tough little bird. I like her a lot.
yep, she gets feisty. She
Yeah.
gets her licks in a couple of times.
Yeah,
She
bats
was
are
like
not bugs. That's what I remember. Bats are not bugs.
but, yeah, but I've taken those panels from that and
Yeah,
painted them with my kids. We
I
have
love
in the
it.
room
I love it.
upstairs, they're just all across the wall, the panels from Calvin and Hobbes.
And the author or the
Oh,
cartoonist, he
yeah,
refused to market his books. He didn't put them on shirts. He didn't sell merch. Like he refused to. So if you ever see merch, my
yeah.
son has a Calvin and Hobbes t-shirt that was never made by him because he wanted it to just be about the story and nothing else. And I think that's honorable.
It is, it's beautiful, but then he has a whole series of about how he's like, "Well, they did it anyway," so I
Yeah.
guess what the artist and that and trying I'm really trying hard to keep it on the writer theme because
I
I'm just
know. I know we
exhausted.
could go a lot of different directions.
But I mean, it's one of those things that comes up all the time because 'cause I've got this book, this fairy book that I've written for my
Mhm.
kids, and
Mhm.
actually getting back to that, I mean, everybody in the chat, if you've got writers on Substack that you like, give them a voiceover of one of their something
Yes.
they've written, it's like the most amazing gift for writers, and it was like, I was just so delighted to stumble upon this new way
It's
to
fun.
support other writers, and it's
Yeah,
just
it's a really cool thing.
you did get me with, facade, and that almost tripped me up because I was like, because 'cause I'm one of those person that learned all my words from just reading
Yeah,
them
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love hearing kids learn to pronounce words based on just reading and not hearing. My daughter used to say "beckwet." She got to school and she would be say, "I want a beckwet of flowers." She called the sheriff the sharif. We had casinos everywhere because we were in Montana and they were all casinos. And I just didn't want to change any of her language until she kind of figured it out organically because I loved it. It was like her own little way of speaking, and it was just so beautiful. I didn't want to change it.
No, it is delightful. I remember
Yeah,
reading, like, Where the Wild Things Are with my kids and their little I have a couple recordings of them doing that, of
yeah,
course, I probably can't find them anywhere.
yeah.
But I wanted to say, like, with your book, I mean, it's so authentic, it reminds me so much I mean, boy, it's so sad.
It is.
It's just a person with absolutely no control. She needs to have
Yeah.
no choices in her life, and I identify with the character a lot. And, I mean, these moments of just completely you've done a really good job of expressing just completely losing yourself in something. For her, it's music, and then your
Mhm.
descriptions of how she's seeing colors, with the music and things like that.
Mhm.
I think I'm only 7 chapters in, so
Yeah,
that's what I have to comment on. But I'm taking it's kind of an interesting way to read a
yeah.
book too, because I kinda give you I'm reading it kind of as a performance, but it's also like because I don't like, if I can do it in 20 minutes, it's like, "Okay, I'll do it in 20 minutes." If I was trying to make it perfect, it would take me
Oh,
40
no, I
hours,
don't yeah, and but I don't you know what? I don't want it to be performative and perfect. Like, I think that's kind of the point of the character. She's one of these protagonists that you're not sure you always love or support her because she's messy. She doesn't always come off as your favorite person in the world. Because I love a good moral dilemma, and I think this book has several where I want people to start to bond with the wrong people and question why they're doing it. I just find that really interesting as a writer, but it's also like me manipulating people as I write, which is
Well,
you
that's pretty extreme because I am well, as I think about it, it's like, what choices I didn't see any choices
yeah,
she made yet well, I guess I'm 7
right,
chapters
right,
in, maybe she does
yeah,
things later. I mean, at some point, she deserves to have a little bit of the moments
right,
for herself if those things
right.
happen, so but yeah, I think yeah, but it reminds me so much too, like the house they move into, and
Hmm.
I've had that experience too of like male friends where you go into their house and it's like, you can't live like this. And then,
Yeah,
just that
the pink ring in the tub, like just that won't go away. You can't bleach it out.
Well, it's just like the layers of grease on things that you get in
Hmm.
men's apartments
Yep.
sometimes, and even I mean, I try to clean and I do pretty good job, but it's like my wife always finds more, but it's sort of like this good medium, and I legitimately have tried to do better, it's not like
Yeah.
I'm doing the, "Oh, I'm inept, so you have to do
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
work."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
try to do it, and then she's just gets it
Yeah.
cleaner
Yeah.
than me, and so just this situation where this poor person going through and just it ties into how our society and all the bad things going on today, I think.
Hmm.
I mean, the fact that this narrative is such a thing that is not discussed, it's so like in that the blind spots of what we
Yep.
choose to see about the reality of human experience. And so many of those things tie into just this horror show of a society we live in today. And
Hmm.
we're just not even given a chance to respond to things like that.
Yes, and I think people think, "Oh, we're so progressive. We've gotten past so many of these things." But like this place that I'm writing about really exists. And it's a caricature of many, many, many small rural towns across the United States and probably other countries, um, where you step in and you realize that you have gone back in time, that these people have no access to information, they have no access to like even updated clothing. You see people walking around dressed like it's 1995. Like you realize that they are just isolated and they're kind of like a time capsule. They're stepping back into another time in these places. And this is a fictional story, but I pulled from a lot of really true things about that town, about a lot of my mother's grandparents and parents and them growing up in their decades, and the narratives of women and what men were, what was considered, like the idea of all the men going home from church, all the women went home to cook, all the men went to the bar.
Yeah.
Maybe they made it home for dinner, maybe they didn't. The women always looked made over, their bruises were covered. um like, this was not, I was pulling from a lot of true stories, even though it is a fictional story. But this town is, I've heard a lot of things that have come out of this town over my lifetime, and it's not totally fiction. Let me just
Yeah.
put it that way.
Oh, no, I mean, I grew up in a town of 2,000 people, super
Mhm.
conservative,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, your book nails it. It's exactly how it is. And I'd written this article about, how rural people, they're this lie they call a life that rural people have.
Mhm.
But and I get so frustrated with that. And I mean, a lot of my life is just, it's so hard. It's
Yeah.
harder for young women to grow up in places like that. Young men, I
Yes.
think, at least, you can kind of fight your way out. But even so, it's so difficult, and I found in my own life just the indoctrination with those kind of hate
Mhm.
ideologies, and it's just not authentic. It's not with my nature. It's not the kind of person I want to be. But I didn't get that out of my system until
Right.
I moved to South America and lived abroad for 10
Right.
years and completely broke myself down. So
It's a
these are things
sense
we
of
have to talk about.
Yeah, it's a sense of safety too, because like, people think about going to church, and when you're in a small town and you go to a small town church that you've gone to since birth, it's not just your religion, like, it's your entire social life, it's your social structure for your parents and your grandparents, it's your family, it's your extended family,
Hmm.
it's all the people you go to school with. Like, even me, I grew up in a town that was considered a small town, not this small, but like, all my teachers were all, they also all went to my church, and I would sit with my teachers in the back of the church. And so, like, when somebody says, I disagree with this, or I want to step away from this, they're stepping away from an entire structure that has supported them their entire life, and going out
Yeah.
on their own with nothing. And I think that's probably 99% of the problem. And the religion itself, they could keep or you toss, but like, it's that structured environment that they've known their whole lives that they're afraid to step out of.
Yes, and we knew we weren't a religious family, so maybe
Hmm.
that was an advantage for me. But I just flew to South. I knew not one person, and I didn't know Spanish, and
Hmm.
I'm just gonna go live here now, and it's
Good for
just
you.
sort of like, but it's just like that. If people would talk to me, they're just like, "Why did you make that choice?" And it's like, well, it's either that or something permanent
Right.
and ugly. So it's like I had to
Yeah.
do something else. But and I think that's what concerns me about the future of this whole country is, number one, we're not talking about these things at all,
Mhm.
and number two, what's the mechanism we put in place to start fixing it? And what year is the story supposed to be set? I guess I was just thinking,
That's a point. Actually, that's a good point. I didn't pick a year.
yeah, okay,
I mean, there are clues to give you a relative time period, but I didn't want it to be set in a specific year that we could pass. I wanted people to relate to it, to a lot of people to relate to their own childhoods and whatever that meant for them. So I mean, there's references to there being a computer, and there's references to there being phones on the wall, and there are things, but I tried very much to like leave technology out of it so that we can put it in a space and time.
yeah. Well, it's just the true America, and it almost makes me think too of like the other side of the Laura Ingalls Wilder books, because it's just sort of like you read those books and it's like this is a really sanitized version of what
Yeah.
this was. And I almost to the point where it's like this is I still feel creeped out by the show. I never really liked that show, but
Oh,
that was like,
never. Mm-mm.
well, like my grandma was like, "This is the only way to live," and it's like this is something to revere, and I'm just
And
like,
the
"This is."
Waltons, wasn't that the other one people watch, was like the
Oh,
Waltons?
I couldn't
Yeah.
stand either of those. I just re and you know what's weird about Little House on the Prairie is that weird the music they play is so
Yeah.
creepy. Like,
Yeah, I never really watched it because I was a devoted Little House book fan. Like it informed every ounce of my writing to the point that I write a lot really quickly and I have to edit so much because I'm overly descriptive because that's how I was trained by Laura Ingalls Wilder is to speak about I'm walking through the world describing it to a blind person, and which she was. And so I loved her books, but I have to say I read a few times the book Prairie Fires. If you've never read the book Prairie Fires, and it's Carolyn, and I'm forgetting her last name, but she wrote it, I think I want to say 2018, but it's the true story of the Ingalls family and how they made their way through life and the amount of poverty they dealt with. Their entire life was based on poverty, how they would leave in the middle of the night because they couldn't pay the rent. Their dad would pack them up in the middle of the night and they would leave
Oh,
and
yeah.
like the history of the Native American tribes in the area and why her mother was so afraid and so racist against them, and like what those conflicts look like. It's like a really really good book because it's just the entire story. And then like her mother's story, all her mother and her sisters all married Pa and all his brothers, so they have like aunts and uncles and loops on their family tree. But like her mother's family was so poor that they were eating like, I mean, they were starving to death. Like, and that's why they married into Pa's family because Pa's family had money. It's a really good story, but it's the hard story behind that
Yeah.
series and those books. But I never watched the show because I just was like, he doesn't have a beard. I'm out. I don't want to do
Yeah.
this.
Well, Michael Landon was the one writing all the episodes, I think, too, so
Yeah, right.
it wasn't
I
based
don't
on
think
the
he read
book.
the books.
Yeah. But, yeah, Pepin is not too far from me. I'm a couple hours away from
Yeah.
Pepin. I took my
Okay.
daughter once down there. That was a daddy-daughter trip because she's the one she's
Yeah.
she wanted to get a bonnet. She was gonna do something for a
Oh,
play, and I'm just like, "Well, let's go to Pepin." I bet they have bonnets like that.
they have really good plays there in the summer. They have like summer stock there.
Oh, yeah, well, they had it, and they had a museum, and so then I went
Hmm.
in, she was doing her speech for her class, and it was just like
Amazing.
everybody else was just dressed up in, like, cardboard and stuff,
I
she
love it.
looked like she was right out of the
We
'80s.
went we took a so my husband works for the train, so we took a train trip back from where we live now back to Montana, and we passed through basically all the important points from the Little House book. So my daughter had an atlas, and we were like trying to figure out. And we Pepin was across the river from where we were, and the train was so late that we went through at night, and we didn't get to see it, and it was so disappointing. But we tried.
We we had a fun okay, our adventure at Pepin, I might as well tell you this. We're trying
Yeah, there
to
you go.
people will do serious stuff, but we're trying to keep it kinda like, "This is Friday," let's just
We're
kinda
tired.
I am super tired in
Yeah.
these weeks every single week. Okay, but what happened in Pepin, my little daughter, and she's really precocious and super smart.
Mhm.
She was one where the teachers, like, on the first day we brought her into preschool, and she was like, "Bye, mommy. Bye, daddy." And we're just like, "Really?" Because she was,
Alright.
like, so jacked. And they said the teachers right away were like, "Are we gonna?" Because she was just like everything. She was like asking all the
Yes.
questions, and then she would come home and play school with her sister. She'd make her sit there, "Not in my classroom," she'd say to her, and things like this.
Aw.
So we got down to Pepin, and we sat and we had dinner, and she had chicken tenders, and she ate them all, and then she's like, "Here, do you want the last one?" And I bit into the last one, it was raw, and I'm like, "Wait, were yours raw?" And she was like, "No, they were," because she was looking at them. They were, so I'm like, "Okay, I gotta go wash my mouth out." So I go wash, and then when I come back out, she's standing at the register with, like, sternly looking down. I mean, she's, this tall. She's sternly looking down at the chicken, and she's like, "Well, I'm afraid we have a problem here." And I'm just
That's
like,
I
"You
love
could have
her.
waited." That was made me
I love
laugh.
her already. She's gonna be a CEO of her own company.
Oh gosh, that's my plan. I talked with Nick Paro the other day. We were
Mhm,
doing positive masculinity, and he was just asking about, what did he say? Like, how are you a tornado? He was using references to Milan, and I'm like,
mhm.
because of these girls I'm unleashing onto the
Yeah,
world and all these
yes.
stories I've told them. And that's like, yeah, the books that are sitting there. But yeah,
Mhm.
getting back to your book, I don't know, it's just I've just been thinking about it, how it's so impactful for people, and just like in regard to the publishing industry, it's like, yeah,
Mm,
because even we've talked about that before when you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna try," and I've sent out so many inquiries. I've had a couple
yeah,
things picked up by small presses, but that doesn't help. They don't.
right.
All they do is take half the proceeds, and you do all the work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was just, and then you wrote the one because you'd send it out again, and you got a form rejection, and I'm like,
Oh,
I've got that same rejection. I've had that thing
yeah.
too, and so I was just writing about it, like, what is wrong with our industry? That you can get yourself established on platforms like Substack
Mhm.
or anywhere and on Medium, and it's just even then, they don't even take the time to read a paragraph of it. I think that's just maybe
Yeah,
that ties into everything.
I think we're at a time also when, like everything, like journalism, like publishing, probably films, is very locked down about what storylines they can produce if they want to maintain a presence. And so, I've seen friends get publishing deals, and they just really want you to stay in that zone. They have a nice little
Yeah.
happy, safe zone, and if you write in the zone, then you're more likely to publish. And I don't I wouldn't wanna read in that zone. I wanna read things that are complicated and harder and make you think a little bit, but I think there's fear right now. People don't wanna step out of line and stick out and get noticed.
Yeah, and Lefty Prof said that the publishers are gatekeepers, but it's
Yeah.
and this is just another one of those cases though where people who are writers, I have high opinions of writers. Being a writer myself, I think this is the most noble calling. And
Yeah,
so then when I'm writing something about, gee, maybe our publishing industry is corrupt, and so many other writers start piling on you and like getting mad
yeah,
about that. Like it's like we can't have this conversation because if our publishing industry is corrupt, that's pretty bad for humanity. If we're not allowed to
yeah,
share these stories. And so I
right,
just wish, and that goes back to the Adam Kinzinger thing. I wish we could just have real conversations about things and have criticisms without instantly being,
right.
dismissed as "Hello, Chris." He says hi. Yeah, instantly being dismissed as people
Yeah.
on the attack or being unreasonable.
Well, you have to think about, like, publishing all the way from, what we think of as traditional publishers all the way across to, like, publishing an article, right? Sending in an opinion piece.
Yes.
You think of the Washington Post and Jeff Bezos taking over and saying, "You can only have an opinion about these 2 topics if you wanna write an opinion piece for my paper." The only time I've sent in probably 100 different opinion pieces that have gotten really great readers on Substack. But the only time I was ever reached out to by the New York Times, and that's the only single one, was when I wrote something that was really benign and didn't offend anybody. And it was just like one of these, like, I think this thing, but everybody thinks this thing, and then it ended up getting rejected anyway. But it's like, if that same process is being used across all publishing, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to see books that aren't offensive, that don't have any opinions, not only about politics, but don't have opinions about anybody from around the world, don't have opinions about people's genders, don't have opinions about people's, like, about the transgenders. Like, they cannot be opinionated. Like, they don't want an opinion. They want romance, they want fantasy, they want things that don't rock the boat.
Absolutely, and that gets back to these small towns you go through, and they're playing the same radio, songs on the radio that they've played for
Mhm.
50 years, and it's
Yep.
like they are time capsules, these places, and
Mhm.
it seems like they wanna turn the entire United States into that time
Oh,
capsule,
it's the
and
dreamy 1950s. Everything was perfect.
yeah, including the tax code, which they don't wanna go to. Yeah, they
Yeah.
no, the tax code actually was good, everything
Yeah.
else was bad, but, I've told you before, this is we're so close to Minneapolis. We're like an hour and a half away, and
Mhm.
last week, I kept we had a hard week because of that. I kept my daughter home on Thursday after, Renee Good was brutally murdered for no
Yeah.
reason whatsoever, and I keep saying to
Mhm.
people, the car kept going, they're trying this obscene narrative that our Ivy League representatives can't bother to say, because 'cause
Yeah.
they're trying to smear her character like they always do, but, after the guy murdered her, he didn't stop the car and he didn't get run over. So his
No.
act so it's
He
not
didn't
just
drop the phone. If a
yes,
car was coming at me, I would just, your body just, I don't
yes,
know. There's such hypocrisy because they could look at Derek Chauvin with a guy with his knee on a guy's neck and say he wasn't trying to kill him. But
yeah,
they look at a woman who turns her wheels away and says, I'm not mad at you, dude. And she's
yeah,
trying to kill that guy. You know what I mean? Like, there's just such hypocrisy. But I have hope, in the case of Derek Chauvin, he's one of the few
yeah.
law enforcement officials who's been brought to justice. I have hope that because this happened in Minneapolis, that there can be justice. Because I think if anyone can do it, they can do it.
Yeah, and it's so critical because the reason he got brought to justice is because they
Yeah.
went out and they weren't violent. but they were in mass and they demonstrated that people do not want to live in a
Yeah.
society like this. And we push back against the oligarch owned media that tries to control every narrative.
Mm.
And yeah, just these narratives that they try to push on us. And our obligation here, I keep saying what the right does is the right indoctrinates their followers, through rote conditioning all the time to only see the white supremacy narrative. That's all
Mhm.
they can even see. And I'll talk about this with Will Fullwood, where people contort their perception of reality to fit this white supremacy narrative
Yeah.
that they have.
It's easier.
Yep. Well, that's what the right does. So they're constantly grooming from preschool.
Mhm.
It's fused with American culture. But the answer that the Democrats have is, well, we'll just wait. We'll just let them do their thing. The people will see how bad it is, and then they'll vote for us, which completely means that they haven't noticed the fact that the
No.
right doesn't look at evidence. They only look at this. So it's just so offensive to me.
Yeah.
And we need more
Well,
people to battle that
I
narrative or that indoctrination.
I was asking my husband, I was like, does it feel like to you that they're just getting quieter and quieter? Because in the beginning, I thought, oh man, the Democrats are pretty quiet. Maybe they're back building. Maybe they have a plan. Maybe they're meeting behind closed doors. But it's been over a year, and it feels like the people who were loud in the beginning are quieter now. And I don't really understand that. I don't understand because I would hope it's not because an election's coming up and they want people's votes, because that's just the stupidest reason not to fight for democracy. Like, the purpose of you running for anything is to fight for democracy. So start early. I just don't understand it. It seems like the only reason anything is happening, whether it has to do with Minneapolis, whether it has to do with the Epstein files, whether it has to do with Donald Trump and his crimes, is because civilians, people on this side of the political line, are
Yeah.
screaming, right?
Yes.
We would not have the Epstein files except for America is screaming for them. And so we're being given them in drips and drabs. Like, I feel like we have become Congress. We have become the
Yes.
decision makers, and maybe that is back to we the people. Maybe that's how it should
Yes.
be. But like, Congress should be doing something. Congress should be loud. They should be in front of us every day. They should be fighting for us. They should be posting bills. But right now they're just hanging out. It's like they're just tired baked potatoes, just sitting waiting for something to happen. Like, I feel like it's like
Yeah.
Hitler or a baked potato. That's how politics look like to me right now. Like, it's just, I need something.
Well, and what you're saying is so fascinating. I've had the same experience because I never really believed it.
Hmm.
The power of the government is derived from the consent of the governed. Okay, that sounds, but you're really seeing the truth of that, and just
Yeah.
all these illusions. Like we spend our lives chasing money. They just print it up, and then there's somebody that gets to have the job of printing up our money who gets to be a billionaire,
Yeah.
and
Gets to
somehow that whole
decide.
thing is nebulous and we never
Right.
talk about.
And they decide how much it's worth because now they have like Bitcoin. Now they're getting rid of certain, like, everything about money is decided for us, and then we're not allowed to have it on top of it. So,
Yeah, and the more we can get people to just they gotta shake out of their lethargy, and a
mm,
lot of that is why I've been kind of turning my activism. It's like I'm not even paying attention to the blatant Nazis marching in the street because they're just there's a I wanna go after the puppet master who's
right.
controlling them. And that's why I wrote a thing today. I think Adam Kinzinger should be a guy who goes to Minneapolis and he should be doing a 24-hour live because they're not gonna shoot him. They'd shoot me if I go there, but
Yep.
he's like one of their Republican super. He's got a massive platform.
Right.
And it just bothers me how there's a whole spectrum of guys in the middle, like Fetterman and Jeffries and Schumer and Kinzinger and all
Yeah.
these and Carville, and they all seem to the second we start actually making progress towards fixing things or building some momentum, they come along and they presented themselves as allies, but then we get too close to our collective awakening and they're like, tap the brakes on that.
Yeah.
And
Don't.
Martin Luther King said in his letter from Birmingham jail, it's the moderates that are actually the biggest obstacle. It's not the
Mhm.
extreme on the right. It's these moderates who just want this illusion of a passive peace without justice rather than
Mhm.
the active,
They want
work
nothing to change. They want everything just calm down, everybody.
status quo guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think though too, it's like we have to be setting, and it applies both to our books and your book. Well, I
Mhm.
guess this is all kind of coming together a little bit. But just I've been using I've written these fairy books for my kids, and
Mhm.
I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't even want a big publisher because I don't want them to change it.
Yeah.
Just like you said, I
Yeah.
want to leave
Yeah.
all the kind of bad chapters in there that are still kind
Mhm.
of funny. And I use the
Right.
I throw I threw the F word in there a lot just because it made my kids giggle, and I'm
That's
just like,
funny. You're
and it's well, the
Adam
other
Kinzinger would not be very happy with you.
I know. He's more offended by the F word than a
Ugh,
woman getting shot in the face.
yeah.
And he was like, and that was a deflection. People have to recognize that he
Mhm.
distracted from that building energy there. So that was strategic,
Yeah.
and that bothers me. But you were saying before too about how you like to write a lot of exposition or just details. And my book for my kids, it's pretty much all dialogue because it's and I like to kind of perform. And so it's basically like a play, and it's designed
Yeah.
for like dads to read to their kids because there's a pirate and the dog, there's all these
Yeah.
different speaking animals and stuff. And
Very
so, and
lovely.
then one of the times when I sent it off though, I'm just like, this is kind of new. This is designed to help dads. They're just like, they were told me it needed more details and I should go workshop my writing. It was just like, I workshopped it with my kids and they're
I
just like, they
know.
love this story.
They want it's yeah, it's ironic. So here's the irony in it is I tried to shop my book out for almost a year. I eventually got an agent and then I got dropped by that agent. I couldn't for a year get somebody to read the first page of my book. Like that was too hard apparently for any agent in the United States to read one page. I brought it to Substack and I think I got 8,000 people read the first chapter in like 2 days.
Yeah.
And I wish I could take that back and say, there are readers for this. There are people who would read this. Now if you look at my book, you can say people read
Yes.
it and have feedback and I would hope some people don't like it and some people do like it so it has like a fair amount of critique. Um but like people are willing to read your book in the real world and I think they get too wrapped up in sort of the bureaucracy of publishing and not the original point of people want to read stories. Like they want stories. And I think the story portion has been lost out of publishing, which is ironic.
Well, I think it's such a big I mean, journalism is they call it the fourth estate and just the
Yeah.
importance of that and as another check on the government. And it almost
Mhm.
I've almost because I was talking about with Bob Dana too. And it's like, why aren't there protest songs? Like in the 60s, it was just,
Mhm.
what am I fighting for? Don't ask me, don't give like
Right.
all the time. And like nobody's done a like absolutely nobody. And so it's like you
That's a
gotta
great
kind of keep
question.
stepping back. Like the kind of
Yeah.
artists that they allow to become that big. I mean, everybody's going through American Idol or whatever. So their paths
Ugh.
you're getting vetted, and it's like we're not gonna get anybody a platform
Yeah.
who's gonna
I
say
think pop
things.
music is a great representation of books. Like, it's
Yeah,
just like it's
see?
simple, it's about the same topic, we got some love, he broke my heart, a little riff. Like, that's what writing is nowadays. As long as you stay in that
Yes,
mold, you're fine, but it's like nobody yeah, that's a great point. Nobody's writing protest music, and that was, like, the entire 1960s was protest music. It's what I was raised on,
yep.
and you don't hear it anymore.
I'm gonna clarify because neurodivergent says there are some, and of course there are a couple that show up
Okay.
on, places, but I'm just saying, like, when I turn on my radio, it's just the same 6 songs as always,
Yeah.
and I keep telling people, my concern is not the guy in the Oval Office, it's the
Mhm.
mechanism. There's Robert, he's there, good to see Robert.
I
But
know.
it's this mechanism, this unjust mechanism of gatekeepers that allows criminals to pass through unchallenged, and it stops good people. And, like, you've run into gatekeepers, and Kamala Harris definitely ran into gatekeepers, and I've
Mhm.
run into gatekeepers, and it's like, why is it such a struggle for anybody who's decent, but, like, just the most loathsome person in all of
Yeah.
the world? And I think it's because of this. It's because everything is it's not just the corruption of, you know, politics and the legal system, but I think also the publishing industry. The oligarchs bought it all up. They keep
Yeah.
consolidating it so they can
It's
control
who's
what we
ever at
think.
the top is always, benefits from the party in control. So if you go to the New York Times, if you go to the Washington Post, if you go to probably HarperCollins, whoever is the CEO at the very top benefits financially from having Donald Trump in office. And so they're not going to rock that boat. And so it doesn't matter if you have great journalists working for you, which I know they do. They have really great journalists who work hard, who don't sleep, who are not paid very much,
Yeah.
who have to sleep with their phones every night, but they don't get to make the decisions. They can write a great article, but it will get
Yeah.
hidden. It'll get, catch and kill. So it's hard because, I don't know how to change that. Like, because
Yeah.
they've stopped us in time from moving forward.
Well, it's so interesting because and I'm old enough now where it's like as writers, the word is imposter syndrome, and it's just like
Mhm.
you're not making any progress. And I'm just stubborn though. And I'm like, I don't think it's because I don't have any talent. And that's what everybody
Right.
always says. You got no talent. It's like, gee, but why is it then? Because every now and then I get a
Right.
crack in the door of the gatekeeper when it's like, because in what was it, about 2000, must have been 2016, the other election. I wrote an article, just a letter to the editor about how
Hmm.
people were harassing my kids for speaking Spanish in public. And
Yeah.
this article got shared a quarter of a million times from this
Wow.
paper. It was just
Yeah.
gigantic.
Yeah.
And so then I wrote a follow-up article. And when one of my friends, he's in SEO, and he's just like, "Yeah, you just elevated you that article probably added $100,000 in value to that newspaper from like their SEO, whatever." I didn't understand it, but okay, maybe it did. I'm like, they'll probably want something else from me. So I wrote up a follow-up article and they refused to publish it. They're like,
Yeah.
"We can't publish." And so that's when people start in with the, "Oh, they're after money." It's like and
Yeah.
it's like, I don't think we should assume. It's like we always make these
No.
assumptions and we've been trained to make certain assumptions like they're
Yeah.
doing, but it's like profit doesn't justify anything because,
No.
slavery, you'll make more profit if you have slaves. So
Yeah.
that's no good.
I
But
think
people don't walk through that.
I think the best example, and I think I brought this up before, is the Dylan Farrow article. Um, if she had written the article about her father, Woody Allen, in the cover of the opinion section, they would have made $1 million. But they refused to publish it. It only went in the New York Times because Nick Kristof, who was a family friend, published her article in his blog, which was on like the back of the newspaper, right? You had to kind of dig for it. In response, they gave Woody Allen a 2,000 word response in the opinion section on the cover. So it's not about making money; it's about pleasing the people who benefit your paper the most and who give you the most coverage and make the story the longest. I mean, they don't care about making money. They care about making money without rocking the boat. That's all they want.
Yeah, and like you said before, conserving the existing unfair power structure that lets mediocrity rise to the top and never be held
Hmm.
accountable. And that whole thing is what we're up against. And that's why I keep trying to this is a complex issue though. I mean, it's so hard. And those little illusions of a disagreement that happen in chat threads sometimes, because a lot of people were pushing back on
Yep.
my Adam Kinzinger thing today. And I'm just like, I'm an hour out of Minneapolis. I've been
Yeah.
interviewing people from there. I've been trying to because people have not awakened. And even in my community, people aren't seeing the reality. And I keep saying,
Hmm.
I mean, we had Portland, but that was the National Guard. So that was the military. They're vetted. That's a whole different thing. Minneapolis is the first time we've had the untrained white supremacy Gestapo. And the people I've been talking to, they're seeing guys on the street with swastikas and SS tattoos. You're seeing all that shit. And killing murdering Renee Nicole Good hasn't they're not backing down from it because of course they've got the encouragement of the highest levels of government who are always just blatantly lying.
Hmm.
And so this passive response from so many people, I mean, just the danger of it. I'm too close for comfort, frankly. I'm too close. I don't like
Yeah.
being here, but once you've seen something, it can't be unseen. And so just activating the people, it's going to require me to irritate some people that are in power and challenge them, but constructive criticism doesn't mean I'm their enemy. I'd love to sit. If Adam Kinzinger wants to sit with me and have a talk about it, let's do that. I will
Yeah.
explain to you what I think we should do. But they refuse. They cut us off. And that's been my whole life 50 years
Yeah.
of being cut off. And even so, I'm working, working, working. And at this point, they've made things so hard. It's like the
Yeah.
amount of content I can create now is just,
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah, well, it's because they don't want to further something. So, like even if you think of really simple bits and pieces of the Renee Good story, like when they said that they were out digging their truck out of the snow in the road, like just that one simple detail that is even from Donald Trump's video is untrue, right? Um, Nobody went back and said, "Why did you say that? Why did you say that detail?" Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
yeah.
Yeah, or the idea that she turned the wheels towards him. Okay, now we have 10 videos that show that what she said. I mean, that video where they walked around the car and you actually got to see her speak, like that should have made sense to everyone, but I'm guessing not everyone had access to see that video, and
Yes.
purposely. And just like the questions of why is nobody questioning why a guy who was dragged by a vehicle before was out there being able to stand and do this job again when he may have a PTSD reaction to it, right? Like, why is he in the position to have this happen again? And then just the response when people say he's a good Christian man and you see what he says in the video, like, I was embarrassed for his brother to say that because I thought,
Yeah.
like save yourself. When you see someone shoot someone and then say that, like maybe just be quiet for a while, right? Don't throw his church under the bus for like it was just so uncomfortable for me, the decisions that people made. And then everybody just was like, okay, we're gonna move along now. No big deal, nothing to see here. I mean, it happens every day. I talk to people here, and we had an ICE warning go out on our community Facebook page. And so I had mentioned something to someone, and they're like, well, who cares? It's for illegal immigrants. It's for criminal. And I was like, but they're afraid because they're being pulled from their homes. And this person goes, what are you talking about? No one's being pulled from their homes. And I was like, what? Like they had no idea that any of this was going on. And I just thought, wow, that's an amazing sense of isolation that they have
Yeah.
procured for people on that side.
I got 2 responses to that,
Okay, go for
and
it.
well, no, but it's like, well, that structure that exists, and we have to have our response has to be based on this understanding that the other side, the radical right,
Hmm.
they are not gonna be swayed by facts. I mean, they've got
No,
that indoctrination where they've trained their minds to only believe their white supremacy narrative. So there's a lot of psychology that we just aren't taking advantage of here. Now, we're not our response because we again and again we see the Democrats trying to, well, we can't say defund ICE or else we'll get a defund argument. And they don't realize no matter what you say, they're going to misrepresent what you said because
mhm,
that's what they do with literally every single thing they encounter in their life. They only see their white supremacy narrative. And it just really bothers me all the various pundits and the people that are supposed to be intelligent who haven't come to this conclusion yet, and they keep asking us, it's like, well, you have to try to understand their point of view. Their point
I
of view
can't
is to
understand. I cannot
disregard
understand
reality.
racism. Yeah, I can't understand white supremacy. I'm not gonna sit back and be like, I totally see what you're saying. Like that. I don't. I would. Yeah, that makes no sense to me, and it
Yeah,
shouldn't make sense to anybody.
and so we have to push on that because when I start talking about these things, people are like,
Hmm.
"Well, now you're an enemy of blue," and I'm just like, I have to completely comply with everything the Democrats. That's what you're telling me. I
Right.
have to comply with either comply with everything the Democrats do or comply with MAGA. I'm not allowed to say, "Gee, parts of this are okay." I'm not allowed to.
You're allowed to have independent thought.
And it's just really frustrating because there's a whole sequence on my Adam Kinzinger article. There was like 5 comments, and I'm just like, "Don't you see what you're doing? You're attacking me, and all I was
Right.
doing, they're substituting words,
Hmm.
and rather than I'm just saying, look, Adam Kinzinger, please use your platform to better expose. Personally, go to Minneapolis and show America what's
Yeah.
happening because we're all going to have to face this, and all you wonderful people here." And my friend Dan, I was talking to him. He was giving me these strategies and it's all nonviolent. That's the only thing that we can do is the nonviolent strategies, but things like blowing whistles and
Yeah.
organizing with your community. And just so many people that I talk to are still just it just skids off their head. I mean,
Yeah.
you can tell when you're talking to I'm a teacher, so I know when I say something, it just doesn't go in. It doesn't go in.
Right. When they're just like, yeah. I saw the buckets of water yesterday, and I thought, what a beautiful nonviolent way to protest. Buckets of water in
Wow.
Minneapolis in the wintertime. Like,
Yeah,
what a
well,
great way.
when it's 10 below zero, a bucket of water, that doesn't stay water very long.
I thought that's fantastic. All these guys coming up from Florida, they don't know how to deal.
They've been sliding on the ice and they've
Yeah.
been shooting their guns off. And I
Yeah.
wrote another article the other day. It's like, we need to start talking to local police and say, gee, how do you guys feel about the fact that
Hmm.
I mean, you guys put in your dues and you got to know these communities and you're capable of handling everything. And they
Right.
just created this new agency. They didn't vet any of these guys and they're giving them more money than you. And now they want to come to this school and your kid goes to this school and they want to roughhouse the school. I mean, are
Hmm.
you worried your kid's going to? So I think we can
Yeah.
make allies with the police.
Which
Maybe.
is interesting that we had a conversation about that as well last night. How, in 2020, it was the police who was like, that's who we were fighting, and how we've gotten to such a point that the police who were the thing that we were struggling with before, who was the violent extreme before, has become our ally to something that is more violent and more extreme. That's just an interesting like social take on things, that how far we've dropped.
Yes. Well, and I
I don't know.
think there's a big part of it too, and we've been talking a lot about this narrative control and just that minimal amount of that's a fascinating thing. I'm gonna still have to think about it. But just so many Americans are just so indoctrinated to just not even notice that white supremacy exists. And there are just I mean, the Confederacy is in charge of the White House right now. That's what's happened. The KKK has never been denounced as a terrorist
No. Mm-mm.
organization. They've denounced Antifa, which doesn't even exist. But then,
They
like, I'm
denounced
talking.
Renee. They called her a terrorist, and
Yes,
yet the KKK is not a terrorist organization.
but what it's so because
Explain it.
I've gotten better at understanding this, but I'll talk to very, very intelligent left-leaning people, and they'll start
Mhm.
talking about the KKK and white supremacy and how people are, and they just you can see that cognitive dissonance set in where
Mhm.
they're not able to even take it in. They're not even able to hear it. And it's like, I mean, they've been strip searching these poor, completely innocent immigrants. They've been looking for whatever random tattoo they can find, and then
Right.
they're arrested. Oh, that's a gang thing too. Why shouldn't we be asking everybody in ICE to strip down and see if they have any swastikas? And
Right.
it's like nobody even asked this
Or
question.
asking them to take their mask off. Like, that's like a basic that we're so terrible to have worn masks during COVID, and yet we would have to take them off if we wanted to do this, that, and the
Yes.
other, but we can't tell them to take their mask off to identify. We can't ask to see their badge.
Yes.
That's a basic thing. If you have a police officer come knock on your door, you are allowed to ask the door, and they know this. "Hey, can I see your badge first before I open the door?" And they have to show you your badge. ICE does not have to do that.
Well, they do have to, they're just not
I mean,
complying
right,
with it.
right, but
Yeah,
the rules are hazy, right? Like,
y
people are asking to see, like, what is the training guides for this? What are the
yeah,
rules for this? What are we allowed to do? And, like, I have FOIA'd the training materials for ICE, and you can't get them. Like, you're denied.
yeah. Well, and this is why we have to control that narrative because we have to keep bringing that up. Because 'Cause I've
Uh,
just been saying to everybody I meet, to politicians, it's like, "Gee, what about some copycat lunatic who just has his AR-15? He gets cosplay ICE body armor. He wants to go shoot up a school, so he just marches up to the school with his face covered, and he
mhm,
shoots up the school because everybody's been told we just have to comply with ICE." Like, I think we need to ask that to the president and to Caroline Le and just make that
or
conversation
yeah,
out there. So
or
that
stranger danger, the thing we've taught our kids for 100 years, stranger danger, and yet we have to go with the strangers, we have to do what the strangers say, we have to get in the car with the strangers. Like,
yeah,
these were bad guys. These are bad guys. They're still bad guys, but that's what we were trained as, these are bad guys from the beginning.
yeah, and the absurdity of what they're trying to culturally indoctrinate as normal, but I think we're at I mean, because they keep pushing it. I mean, we just kind of I guess we ignore the white supremacists because it's always if a person just will not see reality and they only see their hate narrative, you
Mhm.
just don't wanna be around that person, and
Yeah.
we wanna get around them, but they've just grown and grown, and there's so many,
Mhm.
and now to the point they're at the point where they're elected to the highest offices of power,
Yeah.
and it's like but obviously there's networks of white supremacist
Mhm.
hate groups that wrote Project 2025. It
Right.
wasn't just one guy, there was, like,
Right.
teams of lawyers writing that
Well, and
thing.
it's not surprising. Like, if you know anything about the history, and I'm sure you do, but like the history of Donald Trump, and you look at you look at if anybody knows about the Central Park Five, just that
Oh, yeah.
singular story, but then also like his time trying to build casinos on Native American reservations and all the horrible, horrible things that he did to tribal people, and like,
Yeah.
he do and all the people who were living in his apartment buildings that he kicked out because he thought it brought down the rent value, like, he is not a person who likes people who are not white, like, this is his whole history, and so to put him in power is to put that point of view in power, and that's what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, I would say and it's sad, but that's the entire history of the United States, and
Mhm.
that's why this is what happens when you don't teach real history, when you teach sanitized history, because
Yeah.
Americans don't know that, in most countries I mean, America was one of the last countries where slavery was abolished, like, they talk
Yep.
about I mean, when Jefferson went to France, slavery was already abolished there, so they're like Moors of the times. It's like in his
Mhm.
time, everybody knew slavery was bad. And they did things like the birthing farms once they cut off the slave trades, which are the most horrible thing you can
Mhm.
imagine. They're rounding up enslaved women and raping them and then taking their kids and selling them. And this is something America did. The various genocides in this country, we just don't talk about these. And I just get,
Yeah.
and that's all the thing that's in those hidden narratives. Where if you write a book like your book, trying to tie this in and make it kind of
Thanks.
coherent, but it just gets kind of pushed off.
Right.
We're not allowed all those things. And it's like, yeah, reading your book sometimes isn't all that nice. And it's like
Mhm.
my heart goes out to this
Yeah.
character and it makes me a better dad because I have kids that are getting to be that age, and I'm just like, geez, I guess I better be on point. So and it's like I can't control everything either. So I better
Yeah.
make them powerful. That's another
Yeah.
thing you start to learn. But when you're stuck, when the only thing we ever consume is this false narrative, the whole we had 70 million people or whatever voted for that jerk. I think he stole I think it was rigged because the
Right.
Democrats should be doing recounts.
We've
but
been
still there were
gaslit to
people.
not do recounts, though.
It's insane to not do recounts when the guy has 34 counts of election fraud. He's a
Yeah,
convicted felon because of that,
yeah.
and he was under investigation and everything for the next election. He was under investigating
Mhm,
for cheating there. And our brilliant Ivy League Democrats thought, well, obviously he's this time he's learned his lesson.
yeah.
And it's all because of that, because it's every single one of us has been so indoctrinated to allow that kind of corrupt power
Mhm.
to rule over us. And that's really the bigger thing we have to change. So don't wait for the
Well, and then
midterm.
I mean, and then I mean, on to another issue is like the idea of like noting Native American history and like colonialism and pushing people onto reservations. But let's go take over Greenland. That's 90% indigenous. Let's just go do it again. We didn't learn anything about it the first time. Let's go do it again.
Yeah, and it's and this non and in Venezuela, and I've been to Venezuela a
Hmm.
bunch of times. My wife is from South America, and it's just
Yeah.
heartbreaking. And it's just you, and that's another aspect of this whole thing. There are immigrants coming to the United States because the United States goes to South America and deposes progressive leaders in favor of right wing dictators who screw up the
Hmm.
country. And so the people then get hungry and they march to, and all they do is consume. People ask me, it's like, well, why would they come to the United States if the United States is the country that destroyed their? But it's like, it's hard to come to that realization because the narratives of our time are so controlled.
Yeah.
And I guess it's so hard to even talk about this because it sounds like it's like tinfoil hat stuff, but
Hmm.
it's irrefutable at this point when they're saying we have to obey masked men who claim to be federal agents, even though they refuse to. That's completely insane, and
And I'm
clearly
sure
it's going to be abused.
I'm sure the propaganda is out there about, still the American dream, the American dream, the American
Oh
dream is a
yeah,
better place. I still think that people see life and see what's going on through a very tiny filter, and that crosses borders. I'm sure people in other countries see that too, and they think of, we're just the place that's the American dream that can go build a business and do something better for our family. And then they get separated, and then they don't see their kids. Like, there are kids
yes,
who are still separated from the first Trump administration who never saw their parents again.
yep.
There's no good documenting of what happened to a lot of the children in that first round.
Well, I mean, there's kids that have disappeared from Ukraine. That's why the International
Yep.
Criminal Court has a arrest warrant out for Putin for child sex
Hmm.
trafficking. And, they got rid of birthright citizenship to deprive the protections of a country for kids. And all this goes back to your area of expertise because nobody got arrested for Epstein. So there's no reason to assume that's not still going on. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of those kids that got separated from parents from the United States got shipped off to some island
Hmm.
somewhere. So
Yeah. Yeah. As long as I mean, supposedly the U.S. has very strict standards for documenting people's births and deaths and existence and Social Security, but like, not all countries have that, and it's very easy to disappear children from other places and bring them here or not.
I guess, and it's just, I mean, your book though too, and I want to keep going back to that because it's such an important book. I think it's really
Hmm.
a valuable one because we have to dismantle this mechanism that keeps our society collectively asleep, right? That allows us to be submissive and not free, and miserable
Hmm.
all the time. Is everybody tired of having their back against the wall? Are you tired of
Yeah.
not
Right.
having enough? Never. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's like we never audit the Pentagon, or when they audit it, they never can find tens of billions of dollars, but we're not allowed to have like lunch for our kids at school. And we never
Yeah.
even talk about that. We never talk about auditing. Like all these things are off our radar because, and I think,
Or we trust the audits. The people are auditing themselves. There's no objective third party doing these things. They're like,
yeah,
oh, everything looks great.
well, they know that the Pentagon hasn't passed an audit in a long time. It's like decades that it hasn't passed an
Yeah.
audit, but yeah, and it's that mechanism like we were talking about, that the narratives, and that's why, I guess maybe I'm egotistical being a writer myself, but it's just so
Hmm.
they always the pen is mightier than the sword. They say this, and it seems like they've settled upon us this just absurd narrative that's made us just we're all halfway
Hmm.
um with that white supremacy narrative where we don't even see reality. Like good people don't see the reality of what's going on right now. And it's really
Hmm.
terrifying because I mean when it happened in Portland too, I mean when the National Guard went to Portland, I was upset, but I was just like, well, that'll be handled. But now, I mean, Minneapolis is right up the road and it's different now. And it's like, oh, it's because I'm closer. So I have to do what I can do because it's going to come. You need to know what's going to happen before it comes to your town. You have to be
Right.
prepared. You have to have
Right. They're not
those.
marching down city streets. They're marching down suburban neighborhoods.
and they're becoming ever more emboldened,
Mm.
and that has to be addressed today, and we can't have people like Schumer saying that he's going to, increase funding so that ICE can be better trained. I mean, we can't have that, and people can't attack me and say, "Walter, you're doing a circular firing squad for attacking our allies,"
Yeah.
when he's assisting the
Chuck
people that
Schumer's
are
not.
killing us.
Yeah, I don't know. Are we listening to Chuck Schumer anymore? I don't know a lot of people who are real happy with that guy. Like, I don't think he
Yeah.
represents the Democratic Party in any way, and I think the Democratic Party needs an overhaul. I
Yes,
think the
yes.
ideals are good. I think the nonviolence is great. But again, a baked potato. We're sitting back and not doing a whole lot. And if you want to combat white supremacy, if you want to combat the Gestapo, if you want to combat violence in the street against everyone, but also in the name of undocumented immigrants who are working very hard to be here and become documented
Yeah.
immigrants, then you have to fight. You can't just stand back and be like, well, let's create a policy and work together because they don't want to work together. They don't want to work with us.
Right.
They're having a great old time. They don't need us because they're
Yep.
getting what they want. We have to figure out a way to become more powerful and to end what they're doing.
Yep, and the Republicans don't make any deal they intend to honor ever, so
Yeah.
why should we be wasting our time? And then one other last note, it's completely legal to be undocumented in the United States. You
Yes, it
you know this, I'm
is.
sure, but I like to emphasize that. You can
Yes, it
apply
is.
for
I wrote
asylum
that
within a year.
yesterday and people jump. Oh man, Threads got real angry for me for saying that yesterday, but
Gotta keep
what are you
saying
gonna
it, and that's another thing. Because I mean, a lot of the attacks I get when I
do?
offer a
Mhm.
point like this, that's an
Mhm.
important point, the bots come out because they want to it's the same old thing, they
Yeah.
don't want people thinking about that, they wanna discredit this argument, which is a threat to their power, but yeah, I think
Mhm.
they've overstepped to the point where more and more people are gonna have to see it eventually.
Right.
I I
I would like to end this with a statistic because I say it all the time, but I feel like anywhere I can get somebody new that's never heard the statistic. Of the 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States right now, 3% have a criminal record, and that includes unpaid parking tickets. These are not violent crimes. These are mostly, very small misdemeanors. Of the 340 million Americans in the United States of America, of those who are legal citizens, 33% have a criminal record. 33%. So we are not going up against people who are murderers and
Yeah,
criminals and rapists. You are more likely to get that from your neighbor who's lived here his whole life
yeah,
than you are from somebody who has worked and who is trying to become a citizen, who is working hard, who
yes,
is paying taxes that they don't get anything back from because they don't want to be kicked out. They're not trying to commit crimes. They're trying to live a completely
yes.
clean off the record life until they can get those citizenship papers.
And a lot of immigrants are extremely well educated. They have,
Mhm.
and people, they forget they have master's degrees. They speak multiple languages. They elevate everything about the United
Yeah.
States. And yeah, it's like I tell this to people. I was gonna say too. It's like when people have been harassing me and they start in with the is your wife mad at the people that came here illegally or didn't do it the right way? And I'm like, are you serious? You seriously think that the people that harass us stop to check whether you're here legally or not? It's entirely based on and I've gotten through to
Mhm.
people a couple
Yeah.
times that way, seen their eyes get wide.
Yeah. Yeah. People have to carry their papers here, whether they're citizens or not. So
Yeah.
that's
I'm
is what
I'm
it is.
sure you're busy, Ellie. It's always a delight for me to talk to
I
you,
love
and
chatting with you, Walter.
I hope it was a little bit of a
My
break.
brain got a little bit bigger.
Well, I don't think that's possible, but at least we got to
Uh,
talk about your book a little bit and try
thank
to
you.
draw because I think that's really a bigger issue. I mean, what you're doing with that book is really important, and
Thank you.
there's going to take a lot of things like that. So I encourage everybody out there to go and read Ellie's book. Keep at it,
Yes,
think
please.
about it, think it through, and we got to examine those things that we've been trained not to look at.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're all so conditioned. We laugh at the other side, but it's us too.
And I really appreciate that you've given me so much feedback on it. And again, like I don't always expect people to have good feedback on it. Like I just want feedback. I love critique. I mean, not always, let's be honest, but like I do like getting critical feedback. I'm so appreciative that you've narrated. Again, you don't have to do the entire book, but it's just such a pleasure to hear your voice reading the stories. And everybody should go out and follow Walter and subscribe to him because he does a fantastic job. He stands up for some very important causes, and it's a dream to work with you.
Oh, you're so sweet, and people are asking Death of a Mayfly is the name of the book, so people can find that on your page.
Yeah,
Ah, yes, yeah, next week, the Mouthy Renegade Writer said he can meet us at the same
yeah,
time, so everybody put it on your put it on your calendar next week, an hour earlier than the time right now,
yeah,
wherever
yeah,
you
yeah.
are. on Friday, and it'll be a fun day. He
Yeah.
appreciates you a lot, so
Yeah, I appreciate him too.
and I know him from Medium, and I convinced him to come over here, so he knows you too, so
He's doing well.
he is. Alright, oh, thanks so much, Ellie. You stay
Yeah, happy
safe.
Friday. Happy Friday. Have
Yeah.
a great weekend.
Try to get some rest, and, yeah, at
Yes, you
some
too.
point, it's all just gonna be us talking about our books and sharing pictures our kids drew.
Yes, I know, right?
Yeah,
We'll dream that back.
that's why
Okay,
we're doing this.
right?
Alright,
That's right. See you
thanks,
guys
everybody. Have a great
later.
weekend.